JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a pretty unique manga thanks to it being split into 8 parts, which is the best and most polarising thing about the series. It allows it to completely get rid of plot armor in a way which puts all other shows to shame. Game of Thrones! It also means that since each part completely changes its protagonist and plot, fans could walk into a new part completely loving the last one but hating the new one. A good example of this would be Part 1, Phantom Blood. While being solid, it's most people's least favourite part, and Part 2 is the point where people truly get hooked to the series. After being fully aboard the hype train, they jump into Part 3 and are somewhat disappointed. Part 3 is the most recognisable part in the series, as it's the point where stands are introduced. While each arc in the previous parts was wildly different from the other, with the reader or viewer having no idea what to expect, Part 3 adopts a stand of the week format, which means each arc follows a repetitive structure for the majority of the series here on out. The fact it's repetitive doesn't mean it's bad by any means, but when there's such a shift in the series, it's only natural that some may be turned off. People abandoning this series, whether it be at part 1 or 3, really is a shame, as the general consensus is that the series just gets better with each part. Well, apart from part 5, Venturio, but that's not entirely its fault as it's had some very bad manga scans for years which is only now getting resolved. Each part does something better than its predecessor in one way or another, and I'd argue that every aspect of Diamond is Unbreakable outshines Stardust Crusaders. While people may love each part for different reasons, whether it be part 4 for its great antagonist or part 5 for its great fights, the general consensus is that the 7th part, Steelball Run, is the absolute pinnacle of the series so far. There are many reasons that go into why Part 7 is so well loved by the community, and one of the biggest may be the change in magazine that happened near the beginning of the part, which is one of the best changes the series has had. JoJo had previously been published in Shonen Jump, which produces weekly manga aimed at young boys, which amazes me considering some of the violence Part 5 had, which is unlike any shonen I've seen before, and it can be restrictive at times in what the editors allow. A lot of manga in the magazine follows a very similar format that the editors may not want mangakas to stray too far from. It's said that Anasu was changed from a woman to a man as the editors didn't like how female-orientated the cast of Part 6 was, which is just one example of alleged changes to the manga because of editors of the magazine. When Part 7 moved to Ultra Jump, a monthly magazine with an older target audience which is also the home of Berserk, the violence didn't jump up considering it was already super violent, but there was definitely a darker tone to the series, with 2 children almost getting raped. Not exactly kiddie material. Araki, the mangaka, definitely had more freedom with his work, and since chapters took a month to come out, the chapters looked absolutely stunning, and nowadays JoJo is considered one of the best looking mangas there is. As well as having JoJo's amazing trademark character design, the detailed backgrounds really made the part shine. Considering the premise of Part 7 being travelling across the whole of America, it gives a lot of opportunities to show off the world around the protagonists through varying environments. No other JoJo part really has the characters travelling around this much, apart from Stardust Crusaders, but none of the locations there really stood out. Another reason why the environment got more focus in Steelball Run is of course because of the Golden Spiral, which is entirely based in the environment around Jonathan and Gyro, such as when fighting Sandman or during the Wrecking Ball arc. This means that as well as getting amazing looking backgrounds, they aren't just there to spice things up a bit, as they are key to winning battles. A decent chunk of the final fight takes place upon a moving train. How can you not like that? The group of protagonists is fairly small, with it only being made up of Gyro and Johnny, but it gives lots of time for them to develop through the part and fully fleshes out their backstory. There was always at least one character in previous parts who didn't get as much time in the spotlight as the rest, which is definitely solved here with the smaller cast. I really love how we learn about Gyro's backstory through him often being directly connected to the enemies he's facing. The reason he takes part in the race is a mystery at the start, and after meeting people from his past, such as Oyakamova and Weka People, it gives the enemies more purpose than just being, "We were sent from the main antagonist, come fight us," giving us a great opportunity to delve into Gyro's past afterwards. It's not just the protagonists who have great backstories though, as we learn many of the villains' backstories to figure out why their personality is like it is. Some can seem a bit forced on when the backstory is the first thing you learn about the character, but even so, they're all great in fleshing out these characters who may seem forgettable otherwise. Even if the enemies were just mindless drones just out because of a paycheck and nothing else, it probably wouldn't matter that much as the stands are so goddamn cool. Everything about this part is an absolute celebration of JoJo, chock full of references to previous characters and clever retakes in previous stands. I know this is the millionth time I've shown off this guy, but Oyakamova is an awesome example of this, as it takes the rather simple ability of Killer Queen and has a unique, super overpowered spin on it. And of course, how can I not mention Ringo Road again with his Mandem stand, the most badass cowboy duel of all time. Part 7 is tied with Part 5 as having the greatest fights in my opinion, as basically every fight has at least one standout moment. The great homage is right at the end, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. When Diego Brando shows up with the world, it's great to see the uses Araki has for it when coming back to it 20 years later, and it really is the best way this entire celebration could have ended. While I could go on and on about small details that Steelball Run does excellently, the final thing I want to talk about is the morality of this part. There is no good versus evil, and Funny Valentine is essentially on his own with very few allies. Everyone in this part is in it for one reason, the 50 million. The characters are in it for themselves, with each person's motivation being just as valid as anyone else's. There was a shonen I watched a while back called Inuyasha, and it wasn't the best, but one thing I liked about it was how it is a three-party struggle, with the main cast's enemies being against each other. As a result, I'm glad that this is also apparent in part 7, such as when Hot Pants and Diego try and take down Valentine. Honestly, for a decent chunk of the part I was hoping Diego would win the entire thing, as much as I like Johnny, you really do question who should get the corpse parts in the end. Johnny had his selfish reasons, Diego wanted revenge, Valentine wanted the best for America at the cost of the rest of the world. All flawed reasons, but not without their positives, which makes it hard to say any true good or bad. And that's how it should be. The world isn't that black and white, and it's all about perspective. It's good to see media take into account the many conflicting interests people have. Well, there you have it. I've shown why I love the part, and probably haven't expressed how awesome it is nearly enough, not that it matters. Chances are, if you've watched this video, you've read part 7 already, and we can all agree that it's an absolute masterpiece, and nothing I can say gives it justice. If you haven't read it, get started. The characters, the setting, everything about this part is expertly done, and I can say without a doubt that nothing I've read before can compare to this. Now that JoJo is exploding in popularity, I can't wait to see the next generation of fans start this epic journey.